Joining me now is the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Madam Ambassador, always good to see you. Thank you. The Arab League says this move has, quote, isolated the U.S. from the peace process. Your administration, of course, has made peace in the Middle East one of its top priorities. How does this move help that? How does it help the peace process in any way?
Well, let's first of all talk about what this does. This basically says that the United States acknowledges that the capital of Israel is Jerusalem, and saying also that the embassy is going to be moved to the capital, just like it is in almost every other country. In Israel, in Jerusalem, you've got the parliament, you've got the president, you've got the prime minister, you've got the Supreme Court. So why shouldn't we have the embassy there? Secondly, I will tell you that for 22 years, you have had presidents and the American people ask for the embassy to be moved. And no president, not Clinton, not Bush, not Obama, actually had the courage to make that move and listen to the will of the American people. The Senate just overwhelmingly again voted to have the embassy moved. So the president did the will of the people. When it comes to those that are upset, we knew that was going to happen. But courage does cause that. When you make a decision, you're going to have some that see it negatively and you're going to have some that see it positively. But I strongly believe this is going to move the ball forward for the peace process.
How is it going to move the ball forward for the peace process? One of the things that's been pointed out, first of all, let me just say that I'm sure Presidents Bush, Clinton, and Obama would dispute the idea that that they didn't do it because of courage. But putting that aside, President Trump is supposed to be a master negotiator. Isn't this just cashing in a chit and getting nothing for it? How does this move the peace process forward in any way?
Not at all. And I will tell you, all the presidents wanted to do it, and everyone around them kept saying, don't do it, don't do it. This president said for 22 years, that waiting didn't help us. Now let's try and move the ball. What I will tell you is, you have to look at the situation that he just took Jerusalem off the table. He just took it off the table. So now they get to come together. They get to decide what the borders will look like. They get to decide the boundaries, and they get to talk about how they want to see Jerusalem going forward. All we did was say, this is not something that we're going to allow to happen in the middle of your negotiations. You come together and you decide what you want from the Israelis and the Palestinians for the peace process to look like. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And in terms of the Arab League, yes, they have said that, but we have a whole lot more in common with the Arab League than we've ever had before. And mainly that's because of our fight against Iran. And so, while this is one issue they disagree with, there's a whole lot of other issues that we're working very closely with them on.
I want you to take a listen to something that Dr. Saeb Erekat, the PLO Secretary General, said after President Trump's decision.
I think tonight he is strengthening the forces of extremists in this region as no one has done before. This is an act, a statement that's totally uncalled for, totally unacceptable. He's in total violation of international law, human rights, and he's turning the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis from a political one into a religious one. That's a very dangerous situation.
Do you have no concerns that this decision is going to weaken the moderate voices in the Arab world and strengthen the zealots?
No, because I have no concern, because what they mostly care about and what's their priority right now is Iran. And we are in lockstep with them. And we have done a great job of talking about how we're going to fight extremists. Jake, when the president made this comment on Wednesday, everybody said the sky was going to fall. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the sky's still up there. It hasn't fallen. It is maybe human nature for some to say this is terrible, but what if this actually moved the ball forward?
How?
And that's what the American people...
Madam Secretary, you keep saying that, and I still don't see how it moves the ball forward. In terms of the peace process, all the president has done, is remove something from the table that could have been used to either force the Israelis to concede something or force the Palestinians to concede something.
Because we've had conversations with both the Palestinians and the Israelis. We've had great negotiations in that respect, and we're going to continue doing that. And, for those who want to say this is a bad idea, I'll tell you, ask us 5 and 10 years from now if you still think it's a bad idea, because I really do think that this is going to move the ball in the peace process. And what this does is just say what's real. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. What's wrong with saying it?
What about
the
East
American
Jerusalem?
people have agreed with that.
But what about East Jerusalem?
We did not talk about boundaries or borders for a reason, and that's because whatever is East Jerusalem or any other part, that's between the Palestinians and the Israelis. That's not for the Americans to decide. The Americans just said we want our embassy in the capital, and that capital is Jerusalem.
I still don't see how it moves the peace process forward, but I do want to get
That's okay. It will move the peace process forward, and I'll come back and tell you I told you so.
Okay, well, I await that booking. Let's turn to North Korea, though. President Trump spoke about diplomatic efforts in North Korea Friday night at a rally in Florida. Take a listen to what he had to say.
As part of a campaign of maximum pressure on the vile dictatorship of North Korea, we have imposed the toughest ever sanctions passed by the United Nations Security Council. And we have a lot of other sanctions. But, I don't know that sanctions are going to work with him. We got to give it a shot. We'll see.
Just days ago, North Korea launched an ICBM that theoretically could hit the continental U.S. You and President Trump keep talking about these toughest ever sanctions. But with all due respect, it doesn't seem to be making any difference in North Korea's behavior. Is there any evidence at all that this approach is working?
Well, I think you have to look at what did the sanctions do. They cut off 90% of the trade, 30% of the oil, but every ounce of revenue that North Korea receives, they put towards their nuclear program. So the fact that the sanctions have completely squeezed them, that's less money they can put towards that nuclear program now. So whether people can't see it, it is helping us tremendously to not have them have the cash that they normally would have had. This is a serious situation. The missile that they launched not too long ago was much stronger than the one we had seen before. They have made progress. But what we have managed to do is the United States has led, and the international community is all with us in isolating North Korea. That's a very important move. They feel it. They're getting paranoid. They're stressed out about it. But we're going to continue to keep up the pressure because we have to.
Speaking of sanctions, back in August, the president signed a bill, kind of forced to sign it. That was a bill that passed overwhelmingly by Congress, sanctioning Russia for interfering in the 2016 election. It's now December, and those sanctions have yet to be implemented. Why is President Trump, why is the Trump administration dragging its feet and delaying these sanctions against Russia for the election interference?
Well, from what I've been told, the State Department says they have gone forward with the sanctions on Russia. And so, I don't know anything about what you're talking about because the State Department has said they have fully implemented that.
President Trump attended the opening of the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum on Saturday after two prominent black congressmen, including civil rights leader John Lewis, said they would not be attending because of President Trump's presence. In a statement, they wrote, quote, "President Trump's attendance and his hurtful policies are an insult to the people portrayed in this civil rights museum," unquote. Now, I know you're the UN ambassador, but before that, you were also a South Carolina governor, and you were there during an important moment for the country and for South Carolina when it came to racial healing and reconciliation. Do you think President Trump should do more beyond simply attending a museum opening to show that he actually stands for and believes in the values of the civil rights movement?
Well, I can tell you this. The idea of race is a very sensitive one, and racial issues are extremely we have to be very careful with racial issues because they're personal. What I do believe is we all have to continue to work to improve race relations. That's something that we all want as Americans. I think the president made a first step really trying to go out there to recognize the civil rights that people fought for, to look at this museum and to try and really reach out. I wish they would have joined him in that, but that's something that we just have to continue to do. We have to continue to bring both sides together and say, how are we going to heal? How are we going to move forward?
Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. If I don't see you, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Jake. Thank you.